Welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast, episode number 12, with Dr. Trisha Cardner and Elliot Rowe. So Trisha, tell us about yourself.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Trisha Cardner. I'm the author of Positive Poker and mental game coach to poker players, athletes, and business people.
And my name's Elliot Rowe. I'm a hypnotherapist and I work with poker players and UFC fighters. So Trisha, what tip do you have for us this week?
Well, I wanted to bring up a little something about procrastination. And a little piece of research just came out that had over 1,000 participants take part. The professor on it was, I think you say the name Oserman out of USC. And the way that you can actually stop procrastinating is, let's say we have a goal that is going to take us a year to complete. Let's say we want to become Supernova Elite. And we know it's going to take us the whole year to work on it. Well, we can think about it in a couple of ways. We can think about it in, it's going to take me a year to complete, or we can think it's going to take 12 months, or we can even break it down to weeks or even days. And the little trick that will help you quit procrastinating and get started sooner based off this research is that you should think about your upcoming goals in terms of days instead of months or years, because that's going to motivate the action.
Okay, so it's sort of, instead of just seeing this wider goal and focusing on the end result, you're just focusing on these daily targets to work your way through.
Exactly. So if you think about, okay, let's say you're going to send your kid to college in 18 years, you just had a kid. I know you have children recently. And so you might be thinking about their college fund. Well, you could think about it in terms of 18 years, or you could think I have 6,570 days. And thinking about it in days will get you to start saving sooner than if you think about it in years.
That certainly makes sense. Yeah, it's scary to think of. Oh, I better start that saving.
Yes.
And today on the show, we have António, and I'll try and pronounce the surname correctly, Ramalho. He's known as bettinglife on PokerStars, and he's been a Supernova Elite since 2012, where he actually started the year playing $10 sit and goes and worked his way up to Supernova Elite that's an enormous amount of pressure, moving up through the stakes and then also getting in the volume. So we'll give António a call now. So António, thanks for coming on the show. If you could just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hello, I'm António. I'm betting live at PokerStars, and I play 6-max hypers for a long time now, and yeah.
Excellent. And you've been a Supernova Elite for a number of years, and we were talking with you before about where that started and that sort of process from the lower stakes through. If you could talk us through what you managed to do in that 2012 year.
Okay. So when I was grinding, I grinded sit and goes for forever, and there's this like rank called Supernova Elite that I always wanted to do, and I always thought that these players were like genius, or they had some special talent that I didn't have. But it was something that I truly want, and I was playing like an average buy-in of $10 in the end of 2011, and in 2012 I had this like New Year's resolution high motivation peak that I know is temporary, but for a moment, I decided I really want this and I really want to get it. But I didn't really know what I had to go through to get it. And I just decided, and I started working every day, like 10 hours, and just crazy work. I didn't know any statistics, at least not very deep knowledge in statistics by then. I had to go through all the process, and I just was able to be in mid-stakes, high stakes by June. So I had to grind. I had only 20% of Supernova Elite in June. So I had to grind my way to Supernova Elite from June to December. I had to do 80%. So I think I worked around 2,500 hours that year.
And that was just on the table working?
Yeah, overall, I think. No,
oh, okay.
I'm not sure, but I think overall, yes. 200 hours a month, yeah, probably.
So before you decided to undertake this goal, how serious of a poker player were you?
Well, I was already making a living out of it, but because Portugal, you don't need too much to make a living. But I was not like super professional in terms of like discipline. I would go out on weekends, even if the games were good. I wouldn't study on a regular basis. My mental game was not even, I was not even aware that there was a mental game to be worked on. And I had a lot of things to work on and just really how do you say, it's like a diamond that was not in shape yet. I don't know what's the name, you know?
You needed some refining.
Yes.
And then in terms of those years, you then continued to get Supernova Elite after that. So you had that big year, 2012, you got your first Supernova Elite, and then you've also kept Supernova Elite up, haven't you? How hard's it been to keep that motivation with the following years?
I think motivation is something really temporary. It's like any other emotion. And I think the biggest key for maintaining the high level is habits and rituals that you acquire during your first time of Supernova Elite. Like I didn't have this discipline and habits of working hard. So I trained myself to have them, and then it's easier to just keep doing them. But the first time is definitely the hardest one. You know, when you see your friends having fun, partying, and you know that you have to just grind. You see you have money to travel, and you cannot spend it because you have to work, and that's the hardest part. You know, like sacrificing other things, even though you can do them in order to for a higher purpose.
You know,
And
I'm really interested in this idea of habits and developing your own environment of excellence, and I actually write about it in my book Positive Poker. But can you just tell our listeners some of the key habits that you developed that enabled you to get to this level?
okay, so for me, what I try to do is I try to break down. For example, if I want to work $1,500 in a year, I try to make small goals for myself. I try to make daily goals, week goals, and month goals. And I try to organize myself so I can have some free time and I don't see any light in the end of the tunnel. You know, like I'm just going to work all year. That would be crazy. So I try to put, okay, I'm going to work this week. I'm going to try to work 40 hours. And these small goals make us much more motivated because we realize that we can achieve these small goals, so we're likely to achieve the higher goals. And I try to balance my life a little bit. I work out a lot, and I think it's something that I didn't do in the first year, but I think it's really important to have a life balance when you're just making such a ambitious goal in terms of work, like in terms of work ethic and in order to be sustainable.
And this is something that's come up with quite a few of the guests who've been successful, this link between exercise, being in physically good shape and succeeding in poker. What do you have to say on that? Like, how important do you feel that exercise has been for your stamina at the table?
To be honest with you, I can't really compare because I've never been unhealthy in terms of food habits and exercise. But from what I see, like I've been playing some live poker recently, and I take all my diet. I prepare everything before I go in the casino, and I prepare all my diet for all the meals of the day. And I can see these guys burning out, like in terms of body language. And after 3 or 4 days of work, they're just so much more tired than me, and I'm just more sharp and ready to compete.
Were you any sort of competitor outside of poker? You know, like did you ever play sports or anything like that? And that's where you got these ideas from, or did it come from somewhere else?
No, it's funny because all my discipline came actually from poker. I started to be much more harsh with myself and more disciplined since I started playing. And I was actually pretty lazy before.
And which games are you playing at the moment? Do you just play one game type, or do you play over multiple game types?
I play six max sit and goes, but I also play some MTTs, the higher stakes that run. But yeah, pretty much it. Sit and goes.
Okay, and how's the dynamic of the sit and goes at the moment? Is lots of regulars, or are there still recreational players playing them?
I think sit and goes right now are likely one of the most competitive structures. Maybe high stakes cash games are more competitive, but what happens is that we're playing shorter stacks, so it's in a way easier to achieve an equilibrium. And so everybody's really playing close to GDO. And what happens is everybody's just making this crazy grind to grind 2 or 3 Supernova Elites or 1 Supernova Elite. And what happens is they lose for rakeback, and games are so competitive, such a big variance, everybody working on their game. So that's where mental games takes part, because when you work a bit on your theory game, the incremental improvement is slight because you just worked so much in it. But if you never worked on your mental game, if you invest a little bit on it, it's going to be huge improvement. So I think that's something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something where it's the easiest way for people to generate an edge if technically they're already very strong.
Yes.
Because so many people, as you say, just have never really worked on their mental game at all. You know, especially as people are moving up. Obviously, the higher stakes, it's more normal, I think.
Yeah, I've been trying to play higher stakes for some time. I think I'm the example that in order to play a certain high stakes, you don't really need to be really talented, because I failed so many times, and I tried it and then I did it, and then in order to be where I am, I just failed so many times. I was not the player that you see the stories like, I just moved so quick in stakes, and everything went well for me. I'm the guy that tried and failed and had to go there again many times, and then he did it. So I think if somebody wants to play high stakes hidden goes, at least until a certain level, like Supernova Elite level, I think it's more related with hard work than talent. Maybe you can use talent in some maybe top 0.1% world class players, but in general, I think so hard work would beat talent in this case.
In psychology, we have this term, and maybe you know it, we call it grit. And that's just this personality trait where you can really, stick to something. And we find that gritty people have the edge long term over, just naturally talented people. Is that a concept, familiar to you?
Not the word itself, but I think people in life that trait or personality will likely succeed more because perseverance and like excellency is not an act, it's an habit, right? Aristotle would say that. So I think if you have like these really strict habits and you just do the work every single day, no matter what, no excuses, you're just going to be more successful. And if you ask Michael Phelps who's the greatest athlete and why, he says it's the guy who just puts the work no matter what disease, no matter what problems he has, he just does the work every single day. Because these inspiration and motivations are just temporary like fool that you have, but then they're gone. And there's a lot of times that you're just so boring playing and burn out, and you just have to be willing to put the work.
And you mentioned that you burnt out during that original 2012 grind to us. What was burnout for you?
Burnout for me is like, even this year I had some kind of burnout. I know my body now and I know myself and I can feel it. It's like when I put so much, I'm so obsessed with the game that I'm studying so much. I'm playing at the tables, then I go outside the tables and I'm studying for the next day, and I'm putting as much, just all my effort in my life is just a game. So when it happens, I improved a lot for some period of time, but then it's not sustainable, of course, and then I'll eventually burn out. And what happens is that I don't feel like playing. My brain is very slow in terms of thought process. I'm at the tables and I can feel it. I have experienced that. I know that I'm burned out, so I need to take some time off and like a week or two, and then I'm feeling great and sharp to play again. But in 2012 was different. I didn't have time to take breaks. So I had to keep playing burned out. And I remember I was sweating like of being like, it was so irritating for me to play at the moment, but I had to just keep playing, and I could cure my burnouts by playing.
I want to follow up because you did just mention studying, and I'm a big proponent of studying. But can you give the listeners an idea of how you study or how you would propose that they study poker?
Well, it really depends on the level they're playing. But for eventual players that want to play higher, like mid stakes and high stakes, before studying, I think they should realize if there's something they truly want. Because there's going to be a lot of difficulties and really hard things that will happen to them. If you want to study to play higher stakes, which is the most likely, right? It's very likely that it will go wrong, at least for most people. And when things go wrong, this is when people give up. So in their minds, people are willing to work hard, but they're not willing to sacrifice other things. They want to party, they want to watch movies, hanging out with girls, and time is a limited asset. And I think it's the biggest challenge. So if you're willing to put all this work and sacrifice other things, then you can go through the basics of work. I think you can analyze your end histories, or if you're playing lower stakes than the ones are available on the site, you can just look at the regulars that are playing higher and figure out why they're doing this or that. They're definitely doing things different than you are. And when you see what they do and you get more comfortable with their information, then you're getting closer to ready to play at their level.
And with your games, there's obviously an awful lot of variance because everyone is so close. How do you deal with just the natural swings of being in those six max games?
It's pretty hard because I know it's in terms of like theory, I deal with it pretty well, but in terms emotionally, I don't deal that well. I know the theory, I run all the calculations, I know the bankroll that I need, I know that it will happen a percentage of the time this or that, but when it happens, it's a big difference, you know? It's like when I'm in the beginning of the year, I usually set my bankroll that I need for the year, and I take the money enough that I cover my expenses. So I don't feel the pressure. When I lose, I don't feel that I needed that money or anything. But the variance is so high because games are so competitive. It's really hard to keep like a rational sometimes, to keep it cool. And what happens is that, let's say the expected value of a player is 6 figures a year, like 100K, let's an example. But the variance is so high that he can lose that 30% of that amount in a month, and that can be really testing, like challenging for a player. Yes.
So it sounds like you're talking about our dreaded friend Tilt here. Is that what you're kind of getting at, tilting?
Yeah, definitely. Like running bad tilt. This form of tilt is like very funny because I'm not going to mention any names, but I've seen like world-class player like tilting so hard about his bad run that he started to playing ridiculous low stakes for some time to get his confidence back, while he had so much money to play the highest stakes available, and he was one of the best in the world. So, like, imagine this guy, like the best, one of the best. For me, he was the best, but he was one of the best, and he had money, and he was playing like 10 times lower IBI. So, and for some time, and his students were playing higher than him, staked by him. So it's like very funny. You definitely can see a mental game issue here, and something that you work on, because it's not just the mistakes you make on the game, it's also the opportunity cost, right? It's what you could have done if you didn't have the mental game issue.
And do you actually see it in real time on the tables as well? So perhaps somebody who's going through a session that's not going well for them and suddenly they start making very bizarre plays at the table. Do you see that from the regs, or are the regs all pretty solid in their play?
I usually don't pay attention much to what they do. I just focus on what I do. And I play many tables. But I definitely know that they tilt hard because some guys write me on Skype complaining that they can't win against me because of the variance, saying I just run good. And it's very funny. Like sometimes I'm losing so much and they come right to me like, my God, I can't win against you. You're so lucky. And this is definitely a mental game issue. And we're talking about guys that combine millions with poker. And so they're not like these low mid stakes players. I'm talking about high stakes players. So it's really funny to me. I don't really understand. And I thought this was a big leak until I saw Phil Hellmuth's video yesterday. And I realized that this guy, Phil Hellmuth, is the legend of the mental issues games, mental game issues.
Legendary, not in the good way, right?
Not in a good way, yes. I didn't even know it was possible to behave like that.
He's a very interesting example. To get at this, I want to ask you something. You talked about having habits for excellence. Do you ever think that tilt is a habit?
Yeah, in a way, it might be a habit. But I think tilt, it comes with your emotions. So I don't know, maybe in a way, it might be a habit. Yes, for some players. Or maybe the reaction to tilt might be a habit, but I'm not really sure, to be honest.
It's an interesting call. I've definitely had some people describe it to me as a habit in the past. Obviously, a lot of my beliefs are that there's sort of a deeper emotional issue. But I think even sometimes as they're resolved, someone can feel that they should be writing in the chat box, they should be swearing when they see a bad beat. And it loses its emotion. But some people keep up with this continual reaction, even though the emotion starts to dissipate. So I think for some players it can be a habit, but usually sort of the more serious issues tend to be coming from somewhere a bit deeper. And for your plans for the year, what are you looking to do in poker this year?
My plans this year, well, I haven't any like legendary goal. I just want to keep grinding Supernova Elite, and I might start playing more live. And I find live interesting, even though my hourly rate is a bit lower live. I think live has some special aspect where, when you're playing online and you make a play, and even though you're not so secure about your play, it doesn't matter because another hand pops up and you're just playing other hand and you forget the previous hand. When you're playing live and you're not sure, you will be thinking about that hand for 2 minutes. And it's really interesting because live you can really feel where your leaks on the game are because you really think so much thoroughly about the plays that you made and you feel more insecure because you don't have that kind of comfort of seeing other hands and make the right play in other hands. If you make a bad play, you're gonna think about all day. So I think it's something good to improve my game. And I've been playing live. I'm playing Supernova Elite, and I might play some MTTs because I think it's the game of the future.
And that's really interesting. You said MTTs are the game of the future. Is that online that you're thinking of switching, or is that with the live MTTs you're thinking that's the future of the game?
I think overall, like PokerStars introduced a new structure, spin and goes, and with a high rake structure with high variance, it kind of killed the action for sit and go players. Cash games, I think they're pretty low action on cash games, at least no limit hold'em. So MTTs must be the way. Like, I don't think many guys will keep making six figures for a long time in sit and goes. Maybe in this year, next year, and maybe some of the very best in 2018. Of course, heads up guys will always do, but I'm talking about general sit and goes. And so many people making six figures in MTTs in terms of EV. And I think you'll be able to make it for many years to come.
I'm kind of interested in you saying, talking about going to play live, because my experience with a lot of online players is that they find the live arena to be extremely boring.
Yes, that's the biggest challenge for me. I'm really like sleeping on the table sometimes, but I try not to. I try to create some habits of focus because playing 1,000 hands per hour online is standard for me. And when I go and play 25 live, it's like performing 20, 40 times slower, right? So I'm like, what am I doing here? But but at the same time, it's like, when you're playing online and you're a profitable player, you know that even though you're not the very best, with a certain amount of sample, you'll make money. And that happens to live as well. But there will be no certain amount of sample because it would take a lifetime. So what your goal is to be the really, really best. So you reduce the variance the most. At least that's what I feel. So when I'm playing live, I feel, for me, it's more competitive because even though players are worse, even all that, I just want to play my very best. So I don't have that impossible variance of never reaching. So I just want to be win every single hand. And what I mean by winning every single hand, play the very best in every single hand. While online, I don't care so much sometimes.
And in the live games, are you playing sort of sit and goes live? Are you playing live MTTs mainly, or are these cash games in your local area?
I'm playing European Poker Tour.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing the main events, and some side events. I usually just go and take some time off if I bust in the main event, but yeah, just EPTs.
Will you be joining us for the World Series of Poker this summer?
I don't think so. I'm sorry. Because, online games usually get really good at high stakes at that time because most of the regulars are in the World Series. So we can really have soft games. And I think you can make so much money online during that month. So I just that's the month where I work the most. And there's also a lot of taxes for Portuguese players on US when you go in to play there. So I might go on holidays though.
Well, if you go, you might have a chance to see Phil Hellmuth live in action.
That would be worth it. I mean, I didn't know it was possible to behave like that. It was hilarious for me. Like, I never saw something like that. And it's funny because he was playing against an online guy and he was calling him idiot and names and flaming at him. And the guy made actually a really good play. But I guess back in the day, that was considered a bad play for Phil Hellmuth.
Well, tilting is a big part of his brand as well. So I sometimes wonder how much of that is his true emotion and how much of it is his shtick, for his brand and to get media. But that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Well, get some invites to TV shows, doesn't it? So
Exactly.
there's some value in getting angry if you've got the reputation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe the first tilt was natural, and then you realized, I can make money with this, and then you started doing that on purpose.
And I think it would intimidate some opponents as well into playing differently against him. There would definitely be some people who would be uncomfortable making certain plays, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's also something interesting about live. Online, I don't. People, at least what I feel is that I don't really care what happens and what people think. On live, I'm like, what if I show this, and what if maybe I'm not so experienced, so I can talk. But I think live is so much more personal, and so yeah, all these type of behaviors influence our opponents, like you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said there. The extra edge that can be found live that just isn't there in the online game. So as you say, the social pressure of the situation, force of personality, obviously there's all of the reads and the tells. I mean, one thing I talk to online players about when they talk about the boredom of playing a live game, it's try and find another game within the live game. So put your opponents on ranges in every hand they play, rather than just the hands that you're in. Look for tells throughout all of the hands, because as you say, if you've dropped from 1,000 hands an hour to 25, you've got a lot of mental capacity you can be playing with at the table, and guys have found that really useful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yes, you have so much different type of edge on live game. It's definitely a different. Like, I think that most good players online would do well in live in terms of theory. But then when you play live, you realize that you have so much more variables to learn from and edges to get. Yes.
So if people want to find out more about you, where can they go? Do you have a website they can look at?
Yeah, I have a website blog, which is bettinglifepoker.com. And I write sometimes there. And,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Antonio, so much for coming on today and talking about the online Supernova Elite grind, which is so many people are interested in this. Lots of people will be trying to follow what you've done. And I think just explaining to people that really this is just about making a decision and putting in the hard work more than anything else is going to be really useful for people out there. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you myself, Elliot and Tricia.
Excellent. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
So it was great talking to Antonio there about his thoughts on Supernova Elite and the work he had done to get there. And what do you think about the burnout issue there, Tricia?
Well, I was so interested when he mentioned it because it seems like he was able to work with it and power through it, but I'm not sure that's the case for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it was really impressive to hear the way he had managed to get through that year, especially that first year, the 2012, when he said he actually played through the burnout. Now, it's exceptional work to be able to do that without starting to tilt, without actually losing your money, but it's certainly something that I'd like people to be aware of. If you are feeling you're burning out, sometimes it can cost you an awful lot more to play through that burnout rather than taking a break when it's needed, getting your mind back in the place it needs to be, and then getting back into the games when you're ready to play your best, rather than when you're absolutely fried and perhaps you're questioning your decisions.
And I think he did mention this, but I want to reiterate it in terms of burnout is really pay attention to diet, exercise, and life balance. I mean, poker, it's great. It's wonderful. We all love it, but it cannot be your whole life.
Yeah, and I think he's done an excellent job there bringing that exercise in, staying fit and healthy. You'll be able to get through those burnout periods much, much faster. So, yeah, great interview there. It was really good to talk to Antonio. So, Tricia, where can people find out about your products?
Well, of course, you can find me over at Amazon.com with Positive Poker. It's available in paperback, Kindle, and the audio version. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Tricia Cardner.
Great. And if people are interested in finding out about my services, I'm at pokermindcoach.com. We'll talk to you all next week.
Bye, guys.